welcome to the Savage Nation. Let's listen to a little bit of Ponchielli. Ponchielli. One of my favorite pieces of music, incidentally. Thought I'd share it with you today. Ponchielli. Hey, Milcari Ponchielli, we're not going to talk about sauce or gravy. We're going to talk about the greatness of the European male. The great things that the European civilizations have given the world. The great European civilizations that have given the world so much, roundly lambasted by the communists in the universities for the last 60 years, to lead you to believe that all cultures are equal, all people are equal, that the dwarf is equal to the giant, the superstar is equal to the, let us say, incompetent, the mental midget is equal to the mental giant. This is Obama's America. Welcome to the USS of R, now called the USS of A, where they can take a U.S. Marine who publishes anti-government diatribes on his own Facebook page and is arrested and thrown into a mental hospital by Barack Hussein Obama. Released yesterday as a result of the work of the conservative civil rights group, the Rutherford Institute. This is what it's come down to, and most of you are so dumb, you have no idea that we're sinking into the USSR. You ask any Russian who lived in the Soviet Union, and you will find that President Obama is exactly what occurred in the ex-Soviet Union in the early days of Stalinism. This is what they had. You have no idea what you're living through, that you're losing your very freedoms themselves. But I don't want to agitate you, alarm you, or scare you in any way, because God only knows you don't want to hear it. It's summertime and the living is easy. So let's have some Ponchielli music. Let's let people dance like the puppets that they are on the edge of the string. See, here's how the Soviet Union worked. People lived behind an iron curtain, and everything that they knew came to them from the government. All information that they received was from the government. And so the Soviets had no idea what kind of life people were leading outside of the Soviet Union. They didn't even know that there were tomatoes in stores. They were living with very little, but they were told they were living with a lot. All the platitudes of the then Soviet government told them that everything they had was wonderful as a result of socialism. And the Soviet citizens, not knowing what was going on outside of them, because of the liberal, progressive, communist regime that was running the Soviet Union, had no idea what reality actually was. In fact, in the 1930s, when communists were starving to death as a result of the Russian people being decimated by regulations that were placed upon farmers, New York Times correspondent Walter Duranty reported the following. Here's what he said in the New York Times. Any report of a famine in Russia is today an exaggeration or malignant propaganda. For his lies, Duranty won a Pulitzer Prize. Did you hear this? Through the late 1950s, your liberal newspapers in America ignored and buried stories about work prison camps in the Soviet Union. But more than 20 million people accused of opposing centralized government were worked to death or executed in the Soviet Union. Now, we are seeing the beginning of this. We're seeing the infancy of it in the United States of America. If the U.S. government can snatch a Marine off the streets simply for having posted anti-government feelings on his own Facebook page, then we are living in the ex-Soviet Union. And think, because after all, a nice man like Romney isn't saying it, and after all, he's a conservative, isn't he? No, he's not a conservative, isn't he? He's a member of the establishment. He's a member of the ruling class. He always has been. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And, of course, his style of ruling, I will take over the communist style of ruling any day of the week. But the fact of the matter is, he by no means is a conservative telling us what we are facing under this tyrannical regime called the Obama administration. Now, I could ask you to call me, and I could ask to talk about it, but I think it's quite futile. And so what I'd like to do is just chat today, this Friday, and tell you about this and tell you about that. Maybe I'll read from Trickle Down Tyranny. Maybe I'll read from my forthcoming book, Train Tracks. Maybe I'll read from the opening chapter of the great novel, the second novel that I'm publishing next spring, called A Time for War, which opens with the crash of a helicopter in Afghanistan, where 21 of America's finest die in a flaming wreck. Sort of based upon reality. It's sort of art imitating life.